even chronologically linear.
Or just the tyranny of the written word, where if you're making pictures, you have to learn how to use that you're doing. I mean, in that last thing that I did, I was using letters, which was delightful to me. I love letters.
Letters are beautiful.
Yeah.
I fetishized letters as a kid all the time. The little plastic letters that you put on the refrigerator. I was fascinated, almost worshipful of those things. I was really just fascinated by it. Like, wow.
Well, you were on your path.
I was on my path.
Yeah.
Letters were always good, but numbers too.
I wanted to write before I knew the alphabet. Before I could write. I used to write. I pretend I was writing script. Because I really wanted to do that. And actually, I enjoyed Chinese calligraphy. And there's another interesting thing, because you're writing, but there's no alphabet.
Right. Yeah. I as a person who has read a lot of science fiction and fantasy stories, sometimes when I see these worlds, especially in sequence, when you go down to the basement, you see these worlds. I mean, I think immediately of the kind of interplanetary, almost island hopping that's described in stories, where you have like a jungle planet, maybe a pictures, a forest planet, or maybe a more desolate planet, a desert planet. And there are these things where was sci-fi a thing for you when you were young?
It is now. Ursula Le Guin. I've read and reread a lot of her things. Thanks to my poor memory, I can reread something.
Yeah, that's a benefit, right?
Yeah. But the way she kind of has a set of circumstances on a certain planet, and then she can, in so many ways, create a world around that, really, and I don't know what she's doing. I haven't really analyzed it, but I just, it's delightful.
When you make a little world, like Little Prince, like a little world, you can really kind of focus in on the thing about the small world that is important to the exclusion of a lot of other stuff. It's like this entire world can be encapsulated. We have a tree with a couple of characters here. You have this.
You're talking about the Little Prince,
Le Petit
Prince.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's the image of him standing on a tiny world, right, where it's a little world. It's only a little bit bigger than he is. So the curvature is completely. And this is him, it's the fox. And the
that may subconsciously be what I've been doing, because my feet are in a lot of these pictures.
Right. Yeah.
And some people think, well, didn't you see your feet there? I said, yes, I did. Well, not necessarily, but I'm happy that they're there.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid your feet when your angle of view is 180 or 190 degrees. If you look down a little bit, then your feet are going to be in the picture.
Yeah.
Also, I like his word picture because of the shape he put it in the black background.
Yeah.
And sometimes small, sometimes big, his image.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a different location. I'm a meditationer. So when I see that, I feel, wow, that's like our planet on the space, in the space.
Yeah.
So it's all dark around and we're lonely,
Yeah.
So also I feel compared to the universe, our planet is so small, tiny. And somehow when you see the blowed up the image, you feel, oh wow, we're big, right? We
Yeah.
think we're big,
Yeah.
but it is because we involved with these life relationships, right? So
Yeah.
we care, and then sometimes the fish lens focus on small things, explode or it made a bigger
Totally.
image,
Yeah.
and it seems like there's another world, you know, in their world that's big.
Yeah.
So you're
That's
talking
a
about
meditative.
the world you can go into,
Yeah.
Yes.
but then you can back up and you're seeing a different world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Macro and micro, they call
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Great.
Macro
Yeah.
being looking deeper into a tiny
Right.
area,
Right.
and,
Right. So that's how I feel. I said, "Whoa, that's really catch my mood or my thoughts." That. And so we have talked about this,
Yeah.
and you know.
yeah, one of my fantasies is to be able to do like a 10-foot by 10-foot print with a world this size.
So it's just like completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really looks
Yeah.
like something that you spied, like drifting through space. You're really. Yeah, I can see
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And it would be black.
yeah, black.
Black and then the world.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Which would definitely give you that sense of
yeah.
isolation in the universe. But yeah, I mean, it's of course my mind always goes to, like, you know, when you were in Jersey City, you were doing a lot of shots of the bridges, you know, human built infrastructure, you know, like stuff that's around you, and in some way some of it was the residue of prior construction, prior architecture. Some of it was stuff that was active, that people were using. And you're here, and I'm looking out, and there's this beautiful forest, and it's June, and everything is very bright, and there's kind of a feeling of isolation, and
to the human world.
yeah, or maybe this is different. It's not like living on the waterfront where like you have the city right there with you all the time.
Crowded.
Yeah, so in a way, it might be easier to apprehend the curvature here than it was there, or kind of fall into an idea when you're seeing things. You can see the bend. You might be able to see the bend easier in Boonton than you could when you were on the
Well,
river.
actually, I'm not sure about that, because of all places where you can start to see this is looking out at the ocean.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
Where, you know, you can literally see something go over the edge.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not, but it does.
It
sort
looked.
of feel
Sometimes
like-
it looked that
I was
way.
in Miami Beach
Yeah.
last December, and I was looking at these cruise ships. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's so beautiful how they fade into non-existence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but let me try to think back. You're asking me, how did this happen?
Well, I'm thinking.
You know,
I'm just thinking
and-
about how it changed your perception.
Oh, you know, being in this area.
being here, and it seemed like, I mean, was this the kind of thing that you could imagine shooting while you were there? Did being here and being in the woods and
It was very unlikely, and the reason is because I hated the fisheye lens. And the reason I hated it is because in the 70s it was very popular among hobbyists
mm-hmm.
to use the fisheye lens, especially with the infrastructure that you're talking about. Bridges. Oh, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Look at that building.
I know what you're talking
like
about.
that.
Yeah, it's like you'd make the building
And,
curve, or you'd make the
that-
bridge just kind of go.
At that
yeah.
time, I was, you know, celebrating the integrity of the built environment.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was just like goofball. What? And it made me prejudiced against the fisheye lens, really. So maybe escaping that environment
Yes.
allowed me to begin to consider it, because
I mean,
I'm
now
not,
that you
I
mention
wasn't
it,
in that.
Now that you mention it, I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There was like that kind of approach to, And I guess it's
Popular
supposed to,
Photography magazine.
Yeah, it would be where there would be a lot of bending buildings, bending, and I guess they didn't really do that with trees very frequently. I guess it wasn't really. It was something that was really applied to urban settings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And it's also a little bit more disguised. Like when I was first using the fisheye lens, I didn't want to get distortion.
Mhm.
I just wanted a circular image.
Yeah.
So I figured out that if I stood in a certain place and I pointed the camera in a certain way, I would just get a pretty, a pretty
Straightforward, yeah.
straightforward. Like that's pretty straightforward,
That's pretty
except for the one
straightforward, yeah.
tree on the edge. But so okay, the edges were a little off, but you could, have a relatively dignified, undistorted image.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that's really how I began. And they didn't have a black background. I just wanted to have a circular image. My ideas don't. They don't come about fully formed. It's
Yeah.
just a process of little by little. These modifications
Yeah.
and adjustments.
You figure out something that interests you.
Yeah, like with the black background. I see in the camera it's got a black background. It really looks cool. Why am I taking the trouble to erase the black background?
Yeah.
If I like it this way, why do
Yeah.
I? So that's when I started. Let's try. And then it started to dawn on me why I like the black background is because
Yeah.
they reminded me of
Yeah.
worlds. But
With
that's
the
not
white-
how it started.
With the white background, there's a porthole feel to it.
Mhm.
Like it actually looks a little like you're looking out of a ship where you're looking at
Right.
the circular windows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like you're cruising along, you're looking at, and it isn't exactly because the bend of the trees lets you know that it gives it a dimension, gives it a marble-like feel. But I think with the black background, it definitely looks more like a marble. It looks more like something that you're
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, my teachers always said you have to take risks, and one of the risks in doing something is that there's always the unwanted, uninvited interpretation of what you're doing,
Mhm.
because you have your own point of view, but there's another way of looking at this, and I haven't taken that into account. I don't want people to think of it like that, and that's a weakness in the work. I think that it's just someone might not get it at all the way I would like them to.
Mhm. Yeah, it is having written a million things, and having everyone take things in different ways. It's always. I think about J.K. Rowling. Like you think the world's most successful writer, right? Like she spent the last 15 years or so fighting people's what she sees as her misinterpretations of things in of her stories. It really bothers her. And Harry Potter has lent itself to an enormous amount of fan fictions that people like to fix up the characters, and it really bothers her when this is done with characters who she believes are villains.
But it's a losing battle.
It's a total losing battle. There's nothing that you can do. One of the things that Hillary studied, she studied the history of formation of certain kinds of literature. Samuel Richardson, who was the most popular writer of the 18th century, wrote Pamela, which became kind of the template, Cinderella story. That he was made crazy by misunderstandings, misperceptions of what he had written. He wrote whole other books in an attempt to correct and wrote tons of letters. And Hillary, of course, was like, this is sad in a way. The artist is always going to be misperceived, and it's not a lot you can do that. But
well, there is something that you could do about it, and not try to whip people who are looking at things through their own eyes, but to actually just like accept it, and
Yeah.
and maybe that could go into your mind in a way where you could use that data
Yeah.
to modify your work, to
Yeah.
clarify it.
I've come to
something
love
like
the
that.
dynamics of misapprehension. Like I've really come to. I mean, it's part of the chaos of my own brain where I just really like. I frequently like misunderstanding. I like that. I mean, I know the difference between a project that takes place in a scene and a project that doesn't from my own personal experience, because for the first 10 years when I attempted to make music, I tried to make music. I was basically had no choice but to make music on my own because I was bad. Nobody wanted to listen to it, and like it was my fault, and it was bad. Like, I mean, nobody wanted, and no one was really engaging with it. But once I finally, in my late 20s, got good enough, and at the time when most everybody else was like done with music, I actually started to get okay. But that's basically like by the time I started doing music for real, like most everybody else was like done with making music. Like seriously,
Real
it was,
job.
yeah. But like it was the late 20s my late 20s when I started making for real, and what happened was I was plunged into a scene of people who were making music, and of course they didn't know what I was getting at or why I was singing about the things that I was singing about, and I was constantly amazed by how absorptive I became of just different people's ways of doing things, and their misapprehensions and their misunderstandings kept accruing to my own work.
Isn't that amazing?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
that.
and I started playing in ways I didn't know I had the capacity to play,
Oh.
which is why I tell everybody always that if you ever have an opportunity to be part of a pop scene, and I was lucky enough to be part of it too, just do it, because you'll discover stuff about yourself and what you want to express, and all kinds of stuff will begin to happen, because to the degree that you're not a rock, and that you don't want to be a rock, right? You want to be someone who's open to other
I
people's ways of
like
looking at
that.
things. You know what I mean? Like,
But-
it's just going to happen.
But
you know?
let's face it, where were you at the time?
I was in Union City.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But I
you
was
were
also
in
yeah.
you were in a dense urban environment.
yeah.
You didn't go out to Oklahoma to try to do your work
No.
and fit into that pop scene. You were
No.
you were in a kind of a intense but a provincial, every place is
Yeah.
provincial, you know, limited environment,
Yeah.
and you're not rejecting things that seemed far afield from how you were seeing things.
But when I was,
See, I moved
Yeah.
to a different place,
yeah,
and it's
Yeah.
a different culture,
totally.
and
Yeah.
it's I'm still struggling with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go on.
No, I mean, New York at that time was there were many people who would go on to be part of rock history, and it was apparent even at the time that like I was sharing stages with, like I didn't feel like I had the talent to do it, but I was lucky enough to share stages with people who really did have tremendous talent, and you could see it, and I had to face up to that, what they liked and what they valued, and that what the audiences were valuing, and what they were able to express was not really what I would want to express. But I had to face up to the fact that that was really what people wanted and what people liked, and that this was a whole different way of seeing stuff, and like it just naturally rubs off on you. I think it just becomes
Especially when you're young. Right?
yeah, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
And especially when you're young, and like those people are actually younger, and they are clearly like really good at what they're doing. But what they're doing is something that maybe if you had been asked like 2 or 3 years before, then you would have been like, that's not good. Like don't do that. But then they're doing it, and somehow it's great, and it's connecting with people, and you're like, well, maybe they had a point. Maybe there was something about this. Like like there was so much of what I thought was just like in the garage rock explosion at that time in New York that I thought that we had moved past. You know what I mean? Like no one likes this stuff anymore. Like we don't like this. Like, nobody likes this. And yet there were these bands that they were doing, and they were really talented. Everybody was going crazy, and I was like, well, okay, all right.
What was that, punk?
It was the garage. It was the the whole meet me in the bathroom scene that gave us the Strokes and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the to some degree Interpol came out of that. A lot of Long Wave, a lot of bands that then became, world famous came out of that. And those were the people who we were interacting with at the time. And
So what time was this? What year?
1999 through about 2002.
He's talking about that as the old days.
That was the old days.
For you, it was.
It was the old days. And then for me, it happened again in about the years 2004 through 2007. But that was on a lower level, an indie pop scene, and the bands that kind of came out of that indie pop scene were like the Pains of Being Pure at Heart. And then later, the sort of infrastructure existed for Vampire Weekend to happen, and Vampire Weekend was covering a lot of the same territory. So like by the time we were in the indie pop scene, I was actually a good musician. It was the only time in my life that I was a good musician. And that was great, because to be able to get up on stage and be good was something that I'd never experienced. Like to be good was something that where I was like, wow, I'm actually, and it was only because I was doing, was practicing 4 hours a night and, touring with these guys, and it was like, but I learned all kinds of stuff.
Well, the punk era was like a rebellion against that, right? You had to be bad.
Yes.
Right.
And you had to be bad on with certain bands who weren't
sincere but bad.
Certain bands that weren't bad,
yeah, but
could do it, kind of had a leg up. Like for instance, the Attractions were a band who were like the Attractions were an amazing band. They had some of the best small combo arrangements I've ever heard. And the Attractions were sort of on the punk scene, and Elvis Costello was angry, so it read as punk. So like it read as continuous. But then they'd go out and there'd be these guys they really couldn't play, and then they'd go out and they could really play. And we kind of were similar to that when I was doing my teenage stride, because we were playing with a lot of cupcake pop bands who they were like banging on xylophones and they really couldn't play. And then we would go out and I had gotten good, and everybody else was playing with that band, and that band was really good. So I had the experience of like being on that circuit and having. It was very exciting to be good. Let's put it that way. Like I had never experienced it. Like
exactly.
It was exciting to be good. Like I'd never
like
been good.
You're in command of your instrument.
Yeah, like not only can I express myself with the instrument, but like I can really be like anybody would be like, oh yeah, those guys can play.
You have a vocabulary. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I was doing this, but I can do something else.
Right.
If necessary.
Yeah, like growing up.
With me, I bang on the piano, but I can't say, oh, I'm going to do what I did the other day. I don't remember what I did.
And that is the key,
Yeah.
to be able to repeat your delivery. It's the thing I've really never been able to do. To be able to do it every night. I've never
So you
been
like
able to do it.
writing, also music. You play and write the music as well?
I do write music. I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs.
Yeah, that's
Some of the songs.
what
Oh,
his
by the
medium
way,
is. Yeah.
By the way, we know a person, Bessie. She wrote the music poem.
Uh-huh.
If you are interested, maybe
Cool.
you can share.
Yeah, I'd love.
Oh
I'd love
yeah, I love her poem. It's so funny and also with some meaning.
She's in her 80s, and
Cool.
she's in a nursing home.
Yeah.
We visit
But
her.
she reads her
almost every
poems,
week.
and she's got a kind of a deep, strong voice, and
Cool.
they're remotely smart and silly, kind of. And it sounds like Dr. Seuss is presenting this. It's how Dr. Seuss is like a weird kind of preacher or something, twisted kind of.
Yeah.
But I like hers. It has meaning.
But also like when you're talking to
Delightful.
children, you're projecting
Right.
a kind of warmth and appealing to their sense of humor, their intelligence, and all that. They're really, really neat things.
Yeah.
And that's all she can do. She can't really walk. She
cannot live that.
But she writes
Right. Yeah.
poems. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So Do you want to see the studio now, or you
Sure,
wanna
yeah.
do-
Okay.
You want to look at,
Okay.
you had a couple of things that you wanted to show me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we may come back, continue our tea.
Oh, you want to continue the tea or go for a hike?